Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here, because we are digging into something that's just a fascinating puzzle, the psychology behind the habits of people with extremely high IQs. We're going to mentally map out exactly how highly intelligent minds actually operate, taking a real journey into those subtle and honestly often misunderstood behaviors that define true cognitive power.
Okay, let's dive into this. We all kind of have this image of the expected genius, right? Like someone straight out of a flashy Hollywood movie. Super loud, obviously brilliant, scribbling complex equations out loud, and just generally showing off this massive encyclopedia of knowledge. But you know, psychology research tells a radically different story. The real genius is actually defined by much more subtle behaviors, everyday habits, and really quiet processing. The reality? It's way less theatrical, but as we're going to see, it is so much more interesting.
To really get at the mechanics behind all this, we've organized these 10 subtle habits into 5 distinct behavioral themes. We'll start with rethinking the genius stereotype, then go inside the solitary mind, explore social and emotional quirks, look at the flexible brain, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with the true meaning of intelligence. Let's get to it.
All right, Section 1, Rethinking the Genius Stereotype. The core idea here? It's not what you know, but how you process. Cognitive psychologists actually define intelligence way less as a static database of memorized facts, and much more as an active method of processing the world around you. Which brings us right into Section 2, Inside the Solitary Mind. We're looking at the hidden power of quiet and quirks. And I'd urge you to reconsider some behaviors that you might initially just brush off as someone isolating themselves or, just having strange personality traits.
So, there are 4 key habits that really make up the internal world of a highly intelligent person. We're talking about spending a lot of time alone, talking to themselves, overthinking small things, and late-night thinking. Let's break down exactly what's going on under the hood for each of these.
Starting with solitude. Why spend so much time alone? Well, it's pretty simple. Solitude gives your prefrontal cortex the actual space it needs to work. That's the part of your brain responsible for planning, reflection, and all that complex thinking. There's this fascinating study from the London School of Economics showing that highly intelligent individuals actually feel significantly less satisfied with frequent social interaction compared to others. It's not that their brains are antisocial. They literally just crave quiet processing time. So if you ever feel absolutely drained after a busy party and just need to sit in a quiet room, hey, your prefrontal cortex might just be begging for some space to do its thing.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next habit, talking to oneself. In psychology, they call this self-directed speech. Sure, it might look a little eccentric if someone catches you doing it in the grocery store aisle, right? But studies actually show that talking to yourself vastly improves focus and cognitive control. It helps the brain organize its thoughts and strengthens working memory. So, when you see someone quietly narrating their own thinking, you aren't seeing someone losing their grip. Nope, you are looking at an active, highly efficient cognitive system organizing itself in real time.
Then we've got overthinking. Now, overthinking small things is not actually indecision. An analytical brain rarely just turns off. The exact same complex cognitive processes used to solve massive, intricate problems, those are still running when making everyday choices. Have you ever spent like 20 minutes staring at a restaurant menu, totally paralyzed by the options? What looks like someone just being indecisive about a trivial matter is actually an analytical brain exploring multiple mental models and possibilities all at the exact same time.
And finally, for all my night owls out there, we have late-night thinking. Many high IQ individuals report being way more mentally active at night. Evolutionary psychology actually connects this to higher cognitive flexibility. Staying awake later, operating with this highly active mind at night, it's an evolutionary adaptation. It basically indicates a brain that can easily adapt to non-traditional patterns. So, that's the internal world. But how does the intelligent brain navigate the outside world? That brings us to Section 3, Social and Emotional Quirks.
When it comes to processing external inputs, highly intelligent folks tend to lean heavily on 2 specific social habits: observing way more than they speak and possessing a highly developed sense of humor.
Think about it like this. Instead of immediately blurting out a response in a conversation, an intelligent brain basically runs through this lightning-fast internal checklist. First, they watch the social dynamics unfolding in the room. Then they gather information and analyze the emotional cues of everyone speaking. And finally, they respond thoughtfully based on the patterns they've just recognized. They're essentially gathering the absolute maximum amount of data possible before making a social move.
And that rigorous pattern recognition, it plays heavily into their sense of humor.
Researchers note that humor requires intensely complex cognitive processing. I mean, the brain has to recognize patterns, immediately break expectations, and then connect totally unrelated ideas. In fact, studies published in intelligence research journals show a very real measurable correlation between a higher IQ and advanced humor processing. So it turns out, making people laugh actually requires some serious brain power.
All of this constant processing ultimately shapes what we cover in Section 4, the flexible brain. This is all about the power of adaptability and intellectual humility.
You see, a flexible brain operates like a constantly updating operating system, rather than just a stubborn, locked vault of information. And you'll see this play out in 3 distinct habits: a constant, almost relentless curiosity about even the smallest everyday things, a total comfort in just saying, "I don't know," and a genuine willingness to change their minds when presented with new evidence.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this perfectly contrasts with the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, that psychological tendency for less knowledgeable people to way overestimate what they actually know? Highly intelligent people do the exact opposite. Because they're so deeply aware of just how much complexity exists out there in the world, they can comfortably and easily admit their own ignorance.
And this feeds directly into how they view their own opinions. Highly intelligent people tend to treat their beliefs as flexible mental models rather than fixed identities. For a high IQ individual, curiosity is quite literally a mental engine. Their beliefs aren't tied up in their ego. Instead, those beliefs are simply hypotheses, just sitting there, waiting for better data to arrive.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the concept of cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to seamlessly update those mental models the second new information appears. Changing your mind in light of new evidence? That's not a sign of weakness. In psychology, it's actually the ultimate sign of cognitive strength and top-tier problem-solving prowess.
So what does all of this amount to? It brings us to our final section, the true meaning of intelligence. We're synthesizing all of these quiet habits into a much larger purpose.
I want you to really think about this for a second. How often do we incorrectly interpret someone's need for solitude as them just being antisocial? Or assume that asking a ton of questions means someone is a cynic? Or view someone changing their mind as a sign of flakiness or uncertainty? Society often fundamentally misunderstands these deeply cognitive, highly efficient habits.
Which perfectly sets up our 10th and final habit, a constant search for meaning, driven by a heightened awareness of complexity in society, in relationships, and in human behavior. Because they can clearly see the intricate patterns in absolutely everything, high intelligence inevitably leads to some really profound reflection about identity, our purpose, and just how we make sense of our lives.
So, the crucial point is that ultimately, true intelligence is not just about being able to solve math equations or remember random trivia facts. It is about curiosity. It's a brain that just keeps exploring patterns, keeps questioning assumptions, and endlessly tries to understand the strange, fascinating puzzle of human nature.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the quiet, lingering question that so often sits right at the back of a highly intelligent mind. Why do we think the way we do? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating source material with me today. Keep asking those questions, keep updating your mental models, and definitely keep exploring.